So I am Jessica Craven. I'm so incredibly grateful to be here. Donna, thank you. This is amazing. Donna has given me no parameters for speaking, so I'm going to just kind of wing it here. But I just want to say mostly the most important thing is just thank you to every single one of you who is here. There are so many things that we can be doing on a Sunday night that are sort of lazy and, sort of self-serving. I would be probably watching Netflix or reading my book. And instead, everybody is here. And you came here because you know that there's something bigger than yourself to work for or to worry about. And that's not something that I take for granted after watching what's happened in our country. And the way Americans have responded to it. So thank you, every single one of you. There are some major, major activism heroes in this group. In fact, probably more of you than not are people who have given more than I have to this cause. We've got the whole Civic Sundays row here. They've been doing get-togethers at their houses every Sunday for the whole time. Robert Hubbell goes without saying. We've got Jason Berlin from Field Team 6. We've got Penny, who's been registering voters and is going back to register voters again in Orange County. Like, there's so many people here, many different Dem Party chairs and people who are just doing incredible work. I just met this gentleman, Mr. Myers, who is bringing postcards and letters into senior citizen residences and encouraging them to write. And this is how we survive and how we thrive, is every person doing their little bit. And I guess I'll just say, just in the short amount of time, I'll tell you why my newsletter is called Chop Wood, Carry Water, and I'm sorry if you already know, but it's important. My dad taught me that phrase in a completely different context. He taught it to me as a survival phrase for when I was going through a tough time in my 30s. I was going through a divorce, and I was in so much pain, and I said, when am I ever going to feel better? This feels like it's endless. This feels like I'm never, ever going to get through this. And he said, well, it's going to be bad for a long time. He was very frank. He had been through a couple of divorces. He said, I'm not going to lie. It's going to be tough. But what I'm going to tell you to do to get through it is that every day you're going to wake up and you're going to chop wood, carry water. And I was like, what does that even mean? He said, you're just going to do the thing in front of you to do. Don't think about when will this be over? How am I going to feel in a year still going through this? What can I do today? What are my basic survival actions today? And it worked. It worked. I didn't think I was going to get through that period. And then I thought about that, chop wood, carry water. I did the little basic things every day. And one day I woke up and I thought, oh my God, I got through that. I am in a different place now. And so fast forwarding to Donald Trump getting elected the night of that election, like everybody else, as Jason always says when he talks, I was at the worst election night party of my life. Crying in the car on the way home. I mean, we all know how awful it was, right? It was a devastating, devastating night. Probably one of the worst nights of all of our lives forever, right? And a girlfriend called me. She was crying. And she said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I was not an activist at that point. I was interested in politics, but I was a presidential election activist, like many of us. And out of my mouth, I just said, I guess we're going to chop wood, carry water. I don't know. We're going to have to look for stuff to do. And that's what happened is I started looking for stuff to do, and then I started sharing it with other people. And then more people asked if I could put them on that list and tell them what to do. And I found my calling, which is really funny because I was 48 years old when I figured out what I was put on this earth to do, which was to resist, basically, right? So I always tell young people, like, it might take a while. Just keep trudging along there. You might find your calling in your late 40s. But what I found as a result of doing something every day was that a couple of things started to happen. But the most important one was that I was able to handle the anxiety. I could manage the fear and the anxiety. Whereas just sitting and sort of letting things happen to me, I felt like I couldn't survive that. I couldn't do that. But what I found is that the people who were doing okay and who were thriving were the people who were doing stuff, the people at Civic Sundays. Jason Berlin, who I met on Neighborhood Council, which we both joined shortly after Trump was elected. People who were just like, okay, what do I do? Put me in, coach, right? That kind of thing. And the gift, I suppose, that Donald Trump has given us, if you know, that's stretching it a bit, is that many of us have stood up and said, okay, put me in, coach. I've never paid any attention to this democracy in this country that I live in, but I realized that was a mistake. So what do I do? And I say in my newsletter that hope is in action, because what I have found is that I feel hopeless, you know, probably now it's maybe 30% of the time. I feel hopeless, right? It doesn't matter. And then a lot of the time I feel like, okay, we're going to be okay. It doesn't matter. What I feel doesn't matter. It is what I do. And when I take hopeful actions, when I call my representatives and tell them how I want them to act, when I do a phone bank or do a canvas or, you know, raise a little money for a candidate or whatever, I find that I have suddenly made myself feel better. And so I have actually become a very hopeful person in the face of what's really a pretty calamitous situation. And that's because I stay really busy. And so as we move into, you know, we've never moved out of a dramatic time. It's been a really, really rough few years. And what we're dealing with now is that it's been rough and we're all tired. But this is why, you know, stamina, this is what soldiers, this is what people go through in times of extremes. When we are in extremis, we work even when we're tired. And that's what we're called to do right now, is that we just have to keep showing up, tired or not, and do the work. I can feel exhausted and I can still take my small actions. I can know when I need to tap out and take a break. But I still am absolutely convinced that if every single one of us does a little bit, most days, not every day, but most days, a little something, if we act with more faith than we feel, I am positive that we can come through this and that we can actually shape the kind of country that we've never had, but that really we are capable of being. And so I think the next, you know, 16, 17 months, whatever it is until the election, I guess what I would want to say more than anything is it's going to be very scary. I was saying in my newsletter a couple days ago, we are living in an era of just maximum noise and minimum certainty, right? We don't know anything. It is so scary to consider who will be the presidential candidate, will there be third-party candidates, will people start shooting each other? There's a lot of stuff to be afraid of, right? And for me, my guiding star is always the actions. What can I show up to today to move the needle just a little bit? And, you know, this week I've been doing phone banking. I've been doing phone banking into Virginia. I've written a few postcards into Virginia. I've done phone banking into New Hampshire because we've got a little state level election there. And that's the other thing I want to say. And I think we've all really learned this, is to pay not just attention to the big up ballot races, but what's happening down ballot. And I really do believe there is the potential for us to become such better citizens as a result of what we're going through right now. So as much as this is the hardest time I have ever been through in this country, I am grateful for it because it has brought me to all of you, people like Robert, people, you know, all of you who are these extraordinary humans who have decided to step up in a moment where it would be easier to hide our head in the sand. And I am going to close by saying that I will not give up. I am going to keep acting no matter how hard it gets. It will probably get harder than it is now. But I also believe that as it gets harder, our side will grow. More people will join our team. And I want to remind you that we are acting out of a love of our country and a love for other human beings, right? That is at the ground of what we do. I have an LGBTQ kid. They're amazing. They're 13. I am fighting for my kid and my love for my child and your kids and Bob's kids and grandkids and all of our kids, right? We are acting out of love. The other side, 100% is acting out of fear. And I want to remind you of that. Every day they are more afraid because there are more indications that they are losing. And so while it is a very scary time, I want to encourage you to remember we are acting out of love. They are acting out of fear. Our side will always prevail if we don't quit. So I like to say don't quit before the miracle. That is a saying that was given to me in a completely different context, but I really, really want to remind you of that. When things get hard, please don't quit. Quit for a day, quit for a week, but come back, because the only thing that will defeat us is all of us just giving up and walking away. You have no idea how powerful we are when we stand together, we act out of love, and we remember their fear. And so I'm deeply honored to be here. I don't know if any of that was helpful, but I just want to thank you. If nothing else penetrates tonight, we are living through a moment of seismic history. Everything, maybe no human being in history has lived through a time where we were fighting for democracy here, upon which democracy everywhere else is resting, and the planet. That is a lot of stress. So take care of yourselves. Remember to reach out to people you love and let them reach out to you. And then keep taking action with us, even if you feel that you alone are not very powerful. Because remember, and this is my last sentence, what I say in my Activism 101 workshops all the time is every one of us is just a little drop of water, right? We're just bringing our drop to this. Individual drops of water are very powerless. They don't do very much, but when you put enough of them together, they can carve stone. And that is what we're called to do. So I just ask you to continue bringing your drop. I thank you for bringing your drop.